Ford owners are having issues with Ford Super Duty taillights getting stolen. Apparently, it's really easy to get the taillights out of a Ford Super Duty truck. Apparently, it's really easy. It takes a matter of seconds practically for a well-versed thief to do it. Now, the crazy thing is they cost $2,700 each. That's a piece. That's insane. Why is a taillight $2,700? Oh, okay, yeah, it's got the, it's got the blind spot monitor radar built into it. It's got these other things. Part of this is why I don't like all this modern tech in trucks or cars in general. It's making everything stupid expensive. Can you imagine spending $2,700 on taillights? I don't know, man.
From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
And here we are, rocking it on the Automotive ADHD Show. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars on the weekend. And I've got a loaded show for you today. We're going to talk about why you should support SEMA during this election season. Yeah, we're going to get a little political on it. Political as it relates to cars. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about how a robot built a Porsche minivan for his wife, who may also be a robot. So we're going to figure out if they really are robots and maybe talk about a Porsche that's also a minivan. So we're going to get to that. And I'll give you some new buying information. If you're buying a new truck in 2024, we're going to talk about what are your cheapest options. I know, new trucks are getting expensive. You can easily spend $100,000 on a new truck, and we're going to talk about why you shouldn't, and some trucks that also don't cost $100,000. So we're going to get to all of that, your car sounds, and more on this edition of the Automotive ADHD Show. Now, earlier this week, I was talking to Jim Miller. He swung by the radio studio, and he did something interesting, which is, by the way, for one, you may not have known that Jim ran for mayor here in Colorado Springs. He lost, but he did run for mayor. But he decided to go have a meeting with the current mayor, Mayor Yemi Mobolade, who is the mayor of Colorado Springs. And he went there specifically to have a meeting with the mayor. He had a few topics on his agenda, but one of them was cars. And I got to love Jim for doing this, because we always complain as car guys, car hobbyists, that it's like the city comes after us all the time for all sorts of stuff that really doesn't matter and isn't even bothering our neighbors or any of that. Now, some of it can get excessive. There are issues in that case, but Jim went to the mayor to ask him about some city code issues relating to the fact that here in Colorado Springs, you cannot park a unlicensed vehicle. You might be thinking, on the road in front of your house, because that makes sense. No, you can't park an unlicensed vehicle, unregistered, in your own driveway or on your own property at all, for that matter of fact. And that's, you could say, well, yeah, that's to prevent people from turning their houses into junkyards and stuff like that. But it's really, it becomes a burden on car enthusiasts who maybe have a project car or a car they just don't wish to have registered right now. Maybe they've got a track car, whatever. And technically, yeah, it's a code violation. And Jim went to the mayor to say, hey, what's going on with this? You're telling me that I can't park my private property on my private property. So we're going to hear from Jim about that next week. He's going to come on the show a week from today to discuss his entire meeting. He just met with the mayor, so he's going to kind of discuss all of that. We're going to hear from him. Of course, Jim Miller is sort of the honorary co-host of this show. I don't always have a co-host, but when I do, it's Jim Miller. And so he's going to talk about that. And it's going to be interesting to see what the mayor's take is on this issue. And yeah, you might say, yeah, there's bigger issues we got going on in our city and in where we live. And yeah, sure, there are definitely bigger issues, which is also why one might ask, why is the city coming after people for this specific thing when there are bigger issues at hand? Makes you wonder. So we're gonna hear about that later on the show. That's next week. Again, Jim Miller on this show, right here on this radio station that you're listening to it on, or perhaps on the podcast. Lots of folks catch this podcast throughout the week. So yeah, that's going to be something to look forward to. So Another thing here. Last week was my birthday, and I want to share a cool tool that I got for my birthday, but I'll give you some context behind it first, which is that the weather here is changing. It's getting colder. You may have noticed if you're listening here in the Colorado area, and it is definitely getting colder. Fall is feeling like closer to winter, and trust me, there's going to be snow on the ground sooner or later. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so I had some deferred maintenance on my Tacoma, which is my daily driver, and this will tie into my discussion later on too about cheap new trucks. But I had an issue with the blower motor. The blower motor stopped working on any other setting than high, full blast, which is fine. At least it's working. But I'd like to be able to, modulate that a little bit. And so I started doing some diagnostic work on it. And I traced the problem to this blower motor resistor. This sits in line essentially in the air vent coming into the blower motor because this thing gets hot, needs to be cooled. And if you're watching on the video, YouTube and Rumble, you can see this here. I'm holding it, but I say resistor. This is a big thing. I mean, it's a couple inches across by another couple inches, I would say. And this is responsible for giving you that variable fan speed. Now, when I talked to OBD1 Kenobi about this, he scoffed. He even balked at the fact that, wait, you mean Toyota, who can do no wrong, is still using resistors to control their blower motors, and they're not doing it with pulse width modulation? And I was like, yes, Brian, they're not doing it with pulse width modulation. They're doing it old school because it works, and it doesn't have any computers that can control it, so it can't fail, in theory. Well, mine did. And but the thing is, Toyota had, this is a really common problem. If you have a Tacoma, you may be familiar with this problem, actually. It's a very common problem, so common, in fact, that when I went to the Toyota dealer to get this part, they said, oh, yeah, we've got a service bulletin, and there's an updated part, and you need this updated part, but good for you, we have it in stock. And it turns out the updated part is of a completely different design, and the connector housing's a different design. And I'm saying all of this to say that I had to swap the connector housing, and what I did is the Toyota dealer, as part of the service bulletin, actually sells you a whole new connector housing with the wires already pinned in, so like a whole pigtail assembly. But what I found confusing about it is if I take a look at this one here, this is actually labeled in the connector for each pin, A, B, C, and D. Oh, wait, hang on, no, there we go, that's upside down. All right, A, B, C, and D. And the wires have different colors. There's like yellow, green, black with, or blue, white and black, white and blue, and so on. The new connector with the new wires on it, the wire colors, for one, aren't the same color at all. But fortunately, they labeled the connector A, B, C, and D. And I thought, oh, that's a piece of cake. I don't even have to look at a wiring diagram. I can just pin those wires, or well, I was gonna crimp it, and I ran out of crimp, so that's where my new soldering iron came into play here. But I was gonna solder those wires to the other ones, A, B, C, and D, and match it up, even though the colors are different. I did that. It didn't work. Because A, B, C, and D on this connector is not the same thing as A, B, C, and D on the other connector. Go figure. But again, remember, Toyota can, in fact, do no wrong. That is a established fact. No matter how wrong it seems, it's actually Nissan who's interfering with it and sabotaging them. That's how it goes. If you listen to this show, you just know this to be a fact of life. So what I did, though, I fixed it, and it gave me an excuse to, I think I did like a close to OEM job on replacing that section of the harness with the connector. I put the new resistor in. It works great now. I had to figure it out, though, myself and go find the schematics to see what went where, because A, B, C, and D, even though they're both marked A, B, C, and D, it doesn't matter. Why did you even mark them? So, but it did give me an excuse to use this. And like I said, it was my birthday last week, and I spent my birthday replacing a blower motor resistor. But I did get this Milwaukee soldering iron, and I'll say this isn't an endorsement. Milwaukee's not paying me to say this. I wish they were, but they're not. But this is, I mean, the handiest thing I've had. Like, for the longest time, you know, and I'm not a master solderer. I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. But for the longest time, I've been using this Harbor Freight soldering iron, the super old school one. You've seen these from, Radio Shack back in the day. And I mean, this thing's just junky. It's old. You can see on video that the tip on this one is, well, it's toast. And but I've been using this. This thing was probably $10 10 years ago. But this Milwaukee one, yeah, it's a little more than $10. These go for, I don't know, I've seen them listed anywhere between $75 and $100. And again, not an advertisement for them. But I do like it because This thing's battery powered, and it actually lasts a good amount of time. If you do a lot of automotive work, and specifically wiring, I've tried to shill this off on OBD1 Kenobi. He does not have a wireless soldering iron, and he's missing out. But this thing, if you use Milwaukee tools, it's already got the same batteries. I've got a 2.5 amp hour M12 battery. You just pop that sucker in there, and this thing lasted me about 45 minutes on one battery, and it actually got hot fast, and it's comfortable. This is the future, by the way. I've been using old tech for the longest time. So anyway, that's my little story there. Remember, Toyota can do no wrong. This is not a bad soldering iron. Take that with how you will. Now, coming up after the break, we're going to talk about SEMA and what you can do to protect the internal combustion engine. That's on the way in just a minute. All right. Hey, remember to send your car sounds into the show, Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. Matt West here, hanging out with you, talking cars. It is the Automotive ADHD show, heard around the radio all across southern Colorado. A number of amazing radio stations that you can hear this show on, as well as podcasts, too. It's online, audio, Spotify, Apple, as well as YouTube and Rumble on video. Yes, you can look at my face while I'm talking, which is probably going to encourage nobody to go check out the video. But there's other things, too. You can see the garage studio here. It's wonderful through the magic of technology. I'm here in the garage, but I'm also on the radio at the same time. So it's really cool. Now, I got to talk a little bit about this before we talk a little politics. Yeah, we're going to get political on this show today. But before we do that, Keanu Reeves, Hollywood star Keanu Reeves, this comes by way of the Associated Press, has made his debut into professional auto racing. And Keanu Reeves, of course, the famous actor, think The Matrix. John Wick, by the way. Would John Wick drive race cars? Yes, he would. And the race cars would probably have guns on them, too, because he's John Wick. But anyway, so Keanu Reeves, though, of all the celebrities out there, I kind of like him. I like him. He's a motorcycle guy. He's got like 100 motorcycles. He loves motorsports, and he entered a race here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, this is not like, Indy cars or whatever. This is the Toyota GR Cup. So Toyota has their performance racing division, GR, Gazoo Racing is what it stands for. And they make the GR86, they make the GR Supra, the GR Corolla, right? And of course, they'll deny you warranty coverage if you take any of those cars to the track or drive over 80 miles an hour. We've talked about that before on the show. Go back and check it out on the podcast if you don't know what I'm referring to. But the Toyota GR Cup basically has it's a 8-hour event where everyone's racing basically the same car. Slightly modified GR86s, the rear-wheel drive, fun manual transmission sports coupes. These have some extra add-ons to be race safe, roll cage, fire suppression, things like that. But otherwise, these are pretty stock cars that you could just go to the dealership and buy. And I respect that. I really like that, in fact. I love the idea. Race on Sunday, sell on Monday. I love that idea. Toyota's doing that. So, but Keanu Reeves, this is why the AP is reporting this. Quote, I'll read the headline. Keanu Reeves spins out at Indianapolis Motor Speedway in pro auto racing debut. Yes, he spun out in a corner, and he qualified 31st out of 35 cars, and then he ultimately finished in 25th. And again, this is pro racing, but this is sort of like entry-level pro racing, okay? This is, if you're getting into it for the first time and you've got some money and you want to go a little fancy on it, and you do something like this. Now, bear in mind, this is much more pro than the racing I do. I like to go to the racetrack and throw my car around there. But this is maybe a step up from grassroots racing, the stuff that I do, and a step into the pro direction, but it's not like NASCAR. It's not IndyCar or anything like that. But having said that, it's great that he's racing. It's good that he's doing all of that. Now, AP says Reeves spun into the grass without a collision on the exit of turn 9 a little more than halfway through the 45-minute race. It was an 8-hour event. The race itself was 45 minutes. And then he re-entered the track and continued driving. End of story. But this gets a story by the AP. He spins out into going into turn 9, and he goes into the grass, and then he gets back on the racetrack. That gets a whole article, and because AP reported on it, everyone else reported on it too. Look, if I spin out, if I'm at PPIR, I'm wearing their t-shirt today, actually. If I'm at Pikes Peak International Raceway, and I spin out in one of the corners and I dip into the grass, I just try to shake it off and get back on the track, and no one writes a news story. It's not reported by the AP. If anything, I spin out into the grass and I get some dirt flung into the car, and now I've got a mess to clean up after the fact. That's what happens. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. But no, the AP, I guess, I mean, granted, I guess I'm not Keanu Reeves, because the AP's not reporting on me when I frequently spin out on the track. They're not reporting on me at all. So I don't know. But respect to Keanu Reeves, though, for getting into motorsports and being a celebrity who is using his celebrity reach not to slam on internal combustion engine vehicles and make you feel bad because you're not driving an electric car. He's not doing that. He's going out there and he's racing cars. And I respect that. So that's very good. I don't know what his politics are actually like. It could be terrible, but he's gone out there and he's racing cars, and I appreciate that. By the way, I did see in this article, Reeves, quote, Reeves, who is 60 years old, 60. He's 60? The dude doesn't look 60. Like, his beard's got maybe a little bit of gray in it. He does. I never realized that Keanu Reeves is 60 years old. I guess it makes sense, but it never crossed my mind. I would have never thought. I would have thought maybe the dude's in his, 40s, but that wouldn't make sense, because then you got Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and then you've got, I guess it makes sense that he's 60. Actually thinking about it, I suppose that's fair. So, anyway, there you go. Keanu Reeves. We'll see if we can get him on the show. I'm shaking my head because we probably won't be able to get him, but we'll try. So, now, speaking of politics earlier, it is election season, and I have taken a stance, at least on this show, that, you've been listening to politics probably on the radio all day, every day of the week, and I'm kind of like your break from the mainstream politics right now, and it's an election season, so things are ultra spicy. Things are going on really fast. The news cycle is moving quick, right? But I do want to put this out there, and I want to put this out there because I think, you might just be saying, well, hey, Matt, I'm a car guy. I just like cars. I'm not into politics. I got no dog in this fight. Well, I'm here to tell you, you do have a dog in this fight, especially if you like cars. You absolutely have a dog in the fight, and one that should win. This dog should win, by the way. We should be able to protect motorsports. We should be able to protect the cars and the enthusiast things that we like. So it doesn't take any research really at all to figure out that during the rest of the week, yeah, I do stuff on the radio, and some of it might be political, and you can probably figure out who I'm voting for. It doesn't take a genius to guess that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and endorse a candidate, however, on this show. What I'm going to do, though, is tell you a little bit about some of the advocacy that's going on at SEMA. SEMA, of course, is the Specialty Equipment Market Association. They're known for the SEMA car show, big car show in Las Vegas in November. I went last year, and it was awesome. We did some on-the-ground coverage from SEMA. Wesley Kagan joined me. We had Amir Bentatu, Motor Trend TV host, joining me on the show. It was really great last year. This year, I'm not going to SEMA for a number of other logistical reasons. I'm not going to be there this year. But I really do support what SEMA is doing. And remember, they do a lot of stuff. They're not just the car show. They're not just the car show. And they've got on their website a advocacy section. And they have advocacy for all sorts of things relating to motorsports. But what I want to focus on, and you can go check this out, SEMA.org/advocacy, by the way. You can check this out. See everything that they're doing. They're putting resources into protecting motorsports, protecting aftermarket equipment modifications, aftermarket manufacturers, all of the above. Everything from you, the consumer, to the shop owner, to the manufacturer. Okay? So they're doing some tremendous work here. And I'm not sponsored by SEMA. I'm not endorsing them here. They're not paying me to say this. But it's really important. That's how important I think this is to talk about this. And specifically one of them here, relating to internal combustion engine bans, SEMA is coming out against California's Advanced Clean Cars 2 regulation, abbreviated as ACC2. And it's from California's Air Resource Board, CARB. You may have heard of CARB compliance in the past. Colorado, we've adopted the CARB standards, and to significant detriment, in my opinion, unfortunately. But this Advanced Clean Cars Act 2 regulates that it would ban the sale of new ICE vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles, by 2035. It also requires that 35% of new cars, SUVs, and small trucks sold in California must be zero-emission vehicles starting in 2026. That's literally less than, we're almost done with 2024. We only got a couple months left in 2024, so that's really a little over a year away. It's for one, everything must be zero emissions starting in 2026. So a year away. You're going to get everything new to be zero emissions in a year. Yeah, likely story here. But 17 states, by the way, have adopted California standards. Colorado, again, we are one of them, unfortunately. And this isn't a thing to say that, oh, I hate the environment. No, I love the environment. There's lots of great ways to protect the environment, but singling out cars is perhaps not the best way to start doing that. And also, like motorsports and stuff. Motorsports makes such a small impact on emissions compared to, say, all the cars in India, for example, or China, any of these huge countries. Oh, yeah, me ripping a car around the track is really making a big dent on that. Sure. But here's where we get a little political with this, though, is SEMA has come out in opposition to the Advanced Clean Cars 2 regulation. They've come out against this. Now, why does this matter? I'm not in California. You're maybe not in California. I do know I have listeners on the podcast in California, but this matters because California tends to dictate the way the rest of the country goes. Again, look at Colorado. We just flat out adopted California's standards. And also, manufacturers don't really like spending money, spending resources to make a California version of a car and a everybody else version of a car. If they want to save money, they're going to make one version for everybody. And that usually ends up being the stricter requirement. That usually ends up being California. So California has a massive sway in this nationally, which really, by the way, it shouldn't be that way, but they do. And SEMA is opposing this for a number of reasons. They say that, for one, implementing ICE vehicle bans puts too many Americans out of work. They say manufacturing electric vehicles requires approximately 40% less labor than battery vehicles. So that's one point there. They also say that, and I'll read off here, the EPA's proposed multi-point standards and California's ACC2 regulation fly in the face of consumers having the freedom to purchase the vehicles that best suit their personal needs and the needs of their families. They go on to say the Pew Research Center found that 6 out of 10 Americans, 59%, oppose phasing out the production of new gas-powered vehicles by 2035. So, now, by the way, there are a number of states right now that have bills in effect, well, not in effect, but that are being voted on. If you're watching on video, I know I'm running out of time in this segment, but take a look at the video. A bunch of states have things, not Colorado, unfortunately, to protect the internal combustion engine. So go to SEMA's website, go to the advocacy tab, and check out and see if you are in one of these states. And if you are, let your legislators know how you feel about this and support the bills that protect internal combustion. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back right here in just a minute.
He's the nut behind the wheel and behind the mic. This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
Yes, it is. You've tuned into the correct car show. Not that there's many to choose from, but I assure you this is the correct one here. And before we talk about how Mark Zuckerberg has invented a Porsche minivan, I gotta tell you about this first. This is probably the nicest 1991 Geo Metro ever in existence. And this comes by way of Nico D'Amadia from The Drive. And I can't believe, looking at this here, that somebody actually saved one of these. This is a 33-year-old Geo, and it is currently for sale. And the dealer is asking only $9,995, which is probably the most anyone's paid for a Geo Metro in about 33 years. And if you're watching on video, here we go. Let's see if we can make some technology work. Oh, wow, look at that. You can actually see it on video now, too. But for those of you listening on radio, if you want to take a look at this, and you look right here. Yes, I know I'm pointing. You have to use your imagination on the radio. But this is a red Geo Metro. It's a convertible. It is a drop top, and it's a bright, gorgeous red here. I actually really like this. It's got some nice wheels. Looks like alloy wheels on it. This would have been a not a bad car in 1991. I mean, would it have been fast? No, not at all. But it is kind of neat. And I just can't believe looking at this, and I'm clicking through the pictures here for you on the video, but I cannot believe that somebody actually saved one of these. And it is in incredibly good condition, which, by the way, $9,995 is its original MSRP when it was new. So when you actually think about it, this is a good deal because of that inflation. And hear me out. Let's see here. Let's calculate this inflation here, because you're actually getting a tremendous savings by buying this. And I'm going to talk you into buying this Geo Metro. And so if we say $9,995 in 1991, as of now, that is actually $23,413. $23,413. So basically, you're getting about $13,000 of a discount on this Geo Metro sitting here. I mean, this is fantastic. I love this, and it's got some charm to it. It's definitely not typical. When people see these cars too, I think this would be a real head turner. Yeah. Oh, you say a Geo Metro is a head turner? No, I really think it is. I say that because everyone will be like, oh my gosh, that's the cleanest Geo Metro I've ever seen. Now, this little thing made just 55 horsepower when it was new and 58 pound-feet of torque. It's not a lot. It's not a lot, but seeing in the condition this one's in, it's actually, I imagine it's got all of those 55 horsepowers remaining still. I don't think it's really lost all that many over the years. And it's got, here's my favorite part, 69,000 miles on it. Nice. It's got, and that's not a lot. And again, I don't know what it is. And these come across like Bring a Trailer and some of these other places pretty often. And they're average cars. They're not collectibles. They're not sports cars. They're not rare. It's just absolute museum pieces and time capsules of cars. And I think that's really cool. I think there's something commendable about that, at least in moderation, because I'm the kind of guy who says, you know what, the car's meant to be driven, go drive it, go use it as it's intended, and you will enjoy it more than it just sitting here in a showroom. And, I think if 1% of cars are showroom museum kept like this, that's not all that bad, because we can look back on these and say, man, A, that's in great shape, but B, it reminds you how they built cars differently. Not saying the Geo Metro is some, they don't make them like they used to. Well, they don't. Yeah, sure, it's not an old muscle car. Sure, it's not. And they don't build those like they used to either. But this is a no-frills, simple economy car that is just, it's not trying to be pretentious. It's not trying to be any more than it is. And it's a car that converted into today's dollars would be $23,000 brand new. What are you buying for $23,000 brand new? That's this simple. That has this few things that can go wrong. It is just a car. There's really not much out there. This is basic transport. Now, this one's a little fancy because it's got the drop top on it. But I think it's interesting to see these cars like that. So would you spend $9,000 on it? I absolutely would. And I would encourage you to do so as well. And you should go buy this car. Is that an endorsement for it? I don't know, but it's a cool car. And whoever gets this is going to have the cleanest Geo Metro perhaps on the earth for the conceivable future. So I think that's outstanding. So now I want to talk a little bit about a robot, perhaps. I think he's a robot, at least. I think all credible evidence does suggest that he is, in fact, a robot. And his wife might be one as well. But this robot, I'm talking about Mark Zuckerberg, by the way, founder of Facebook. He decided to get his wife something interesting. And he basically complained that the car that his wife, Priscilla, wanted was a minivan. But she also wanted a Porsche Cayenne Turbo. But she wants a minivan, but she wants a Porsche Cayenne Turbo. Now, you might be sitting there saying, well, Porsche doesn't make a minivan. The Cayenne Turbo GT, I should say, is a SUV. Yeah, it is an SUV. It's a Porsche family SUV. I think it's perfect, honestly, if you have a family and you want a Porsche. But it's not a minivan. It doesn't have the sliding doors. So he comes along and says, well, I'm the founder of Facebook and I have a lot of money. So I'm going to go to the West Coast Customs guys. It's from do you remember the TV show? It was like MTV a long time ago now, the early 2000s, called Pimp My Ride. And they would take cars and do all sorts of crazy modifications to them and then give them back to the owners, surprise them. Oh, your Toyota Corolla now has 62 plasma TVs in it. It weighs 9,000 pounds and it has a fish tank. How about that? Yeah, these are those same guys, but they didn't actually do that to this Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT. They actually did a fairly conservative job with it. And I'll show you some pictures here on the video, YouTube and Rumble. Oh, that's still the Geo Metro. Hey, look at that. That is right there, a minivan. It's stretched. So the wheelbase has been elongated. The whole car's been stretched out. And if we click over to this next video here, there he is. Probably a robot, Mark Zuckerberg, and possibly robot wife, Priscilla, standing there. Now, I do commend Mark Zuckerberg for having some decent taste in cars. He's got a Porsche there for himself as well. And it is not a minivan. It is just a regular Porsche. That is a manual GT3 Touring, by the way, that he is sitting on there. And so he's got one and she's got one. Good. You know what? For all the things I could say about celebrities, which I guess I've talked a lot about celebrities in this show. For all I can say about that, in Facebook, there's a lot of people who don't like Mark Zuckerberg. And honestly, I'm probably one of them. But I commend him for saying, you know what? There's this cool car we want. It doesn't exist. So what are we going to do? Just not buy one? No, we're just going to go make one. Now, am I going to do that? Are you? If your wife says, hey, I want a Porsche, but, I really want a minivan too. Are you just going to go along and drop probably millions of dollars on a custom project here? I mean, talk about the actual custom fab work to do this job. It has to be extensive. Very, very extensive. So, are you going to do that? No, this is not normal. I won't say this is normal at all. But I do think it is slightly entertaining. Is this car going to get driven? Actually, was this for a TV show? It's actually not clear if this was done as a promotional thing for a TV show. Maybe he just went to West Coast Customs to have this done. And you know what though? I mean, if you want a Porsche, you want a minivan, there's only so many options out there. Now, what Porsche could do in this case is just make a minivan. They could do that and then undercut this whole market. So maybe this is an untapped market. So anyway, we'll get to that and more. Oh, and we'll talk about cheap pickup trucks. That is here after the break. Right. Hey, send those car sounds into the show. Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. I am Matt West. You are listening to the Automotive ADHD show. Appreciate you joining me here. If you're joining me on the radio or if you're joining me on the podcast. Of course, we're all across southern Colorado, from the Wet Mountain Valley to Canyon City to Colorado Springs and beyond. But maybe you're listening online, Spotify, iTunes, or maybe even video, YouTube and Rumble, wherever fine shows and, mine are downloaded. Now, by the way, before I talk about small trucks for somewhat kind of cheap trucks, you got to hear about this. So Ford not Ford themselves, but Ford owners are having issues with Ford Super Duty taillights getting stolen. This is the first I heard about this. I'm sure if you own one of these trucks, you've probably been hearing about it a lot more, maybe in owners groups, Facebook pages, and things like that, forums. But this has been going on for some time. Apparently, it's really easy to get the taillights out of a Ford Super Duty truck. Apparently, it's really easy. It takes a matter of seconds practically for a well-versed thief to do it. Now, the crazy thing is they cost $2,700 each. That's a piece. That's insane. Why is a taillight $2,700? Oh, okay, yeah, it's got the, it's got the blind spot monitor radar built into it. It's got these other things. Part of this is why I don't like all this modern tech in trucks or cars in general. It's making everything stupid expensive. Can you imagine spending $2,700 on taillights? I don't know, man. But it's because of this. They're a hot commodity to get stolen. And the fact is, it's over $5,000 to replace the pair. That's more than most of the cars I own. The value of the cars themselves. Come on, man. That's a lot of money. But it is definitely happening. And there are a number of aftermarket solutions. Ford has not come out with a solution for this, by the way, because why would they? They make money when the taillights get stolen because they get to sell you new taillights from the dealer. And you're going to just get them at the dealer. You're not going to get them on Amazon because, again, they've got all the electronics built into them. They're not just taillights anymore. They're sensors and, oh my gosh. So, I mean, Ford has no incentive to actually fix this because they just make money from it. But it's insane, though, when you think about it. It's absolutely nuts. But there are aftermarket kits that make it more challenging to remove the taillights. And basically, they have to go in without giving too much detail. I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea and then steal some taillights. Oh, Matt on the radio told me to do it. No, I didn't. Don't steal taillights. You should feel bad if you steal taillights. Also, you should probably be locked up for a while, too, if you steal taillights. But basically, they're taking they're able to get access to it from the back by the tailgate and pop that tailgate down and then go in and unbolt these taillights in a matter of seconds, basically. And so all these aftermarket solutions basically involve putting brackets around bolts and things, making it so you can't get in. I don't even think they have to necessarily drop the tailgate because you could say, well, I'll just lock my tailgate and my taillights are safe. No, they can actually squeeze a tool in and pop these out without having to take the tailgate down. So it's more of a PSA for you. If you have a Super Duty truck, and maybe this is the first time you're hearing about this, I would suggest looking at the aftermarket. There's a number of companies. I'm not going to pick on any one necessarily, but all of these are somewhere in the $150 range for these kits with these different brackets. I mean, $150 is not a lot to pay peace of mind wise when it comes to a set of taillights that are worth $5,000. What are we doing again in a world where pickup truck taillights are $5,000? What are we doing? We're on the wrong trajectory. We're on the wrong trajectory altogether. I mean, really, this is a sign that things are not going well. I can see if you had a Mercedes and, oh yeah, the taillights are $5,000. Oh, my McLaren's got $5,000 taillights. No, my Ford F-250 has $5,000 taillights. What? Come on, man. Come on. But if this is you, get those taillights protected and don't have them stolen. That sucks. That's got to suck. So, and I'm sure at $5,000 insurance at some point is going to, you're probably, if you have insurance and if you've got a new F-250, you're going to have full coverage on it. It's going to cover that. But your premium's still going to go up because you made a claim on it. And then the more people who steal these are also going to drive up the insurance costs on these trucks because the insurance companies are going to know, oh, you've got a Super Duty truck. Okay, the insurance is going to be more expensive because we're probably planning on your taillights to get stolen. So we're just going to hit you with that premium increase out the gate. Don't say that's not how insurance companies work because that totally is how they work. So anyway, there's a PSA for you. Now, talking about trucks that aren't that are $40,000 rather than $100,000. And speaking of a world that we live in, definitely I would say even a fallen world at this point, that we have $5,000 truck taillights and we've got trucks that are $150,000 for, I don't know, man. But this, and I've just got a couple minutes left to kind of zip through this list here, but this comes by way of Motor Trend, and this is going to be from William Irvin Lewis, who put this list together of some of the cheapest trucks that you can buy in 2020 for the 2025 model year. Now, I love the midsize truck category specifically. I talked a little bit in the bonus show last week, the podcast exclusive, about the Kia Tasman, their new midsize truck that they're teasing. And I think it's actually, we don't know much about the truck, but I don't think it's a bad idea, not by any stretch of the imagination. But for me, I like my Tacoma. It works great for me. I tow an aluminum car hauler with an S2000 on it. The car hauler's 1,100 pounds. The S2000's 26 and some change. So, I'm not towing a lot all the time. The Tacoma's like the perfect size truck for that. Now, if you actually have a Super Duty truck, like an F250 and F350, you might actually be using it for work. You might say, man, I got to tow stuff all the time. I got a horse trailer I got to tow. I got a construction trailer. And man, keep doing that. Get that work done. It's guys like that who make things happen that we need in this world. But for a lot of us, we don't need that big Super Duty truck. And there are a few options. Now, they're all going to be a little under 40 grand, and it's crazy to say that that's a cheap truck now, but it is. Ford Ranger, base model here, $34,815, and that is a base truck, so you get the base interior and all of that stuff, but base trim, 270 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque, 7,500 pound capacity towing-wise, 1,800 pounds in the bed. It's really not that bad. Nissan's got a $33,000 base model Frontier, and by the way, that's going to be a two-wheel drive truck here. Nissan's kind of behind the times. They don't have the money for R&D. Like, we know that Nissan's a company that's been struggling for years, and that shows because this truck is pretty behind the times on the engine output, base torque, 280 pound-feet. It's not a lot, and it's a very, very cheap interior, but again, for a small truck, that's not bad. Tacoma's got the rear-wheel drive base model. Tacoma has that. Toyota has that as a Tacoma, I should say. $33,500, and it is leaf sprung. I've noticed that. So the old gen trucks, the third gen trucks, the second gen trucks, mine's a second gen, leaf sprung. The new fourth gen trucks are coil sprung, except on the base model. Interesting fact there. Not that there's anything wrong with leaf springs, but Tacoma's probably got the lowest towing capacity out of all of these. 6,500 pounds. Not terribly a whole lot. And for me, it still works. And my truck's about the same. I've got the manual, so mine's 6,400 pounds. But finally, the one that's probably the best buy, Chevy Colorado. And the Chevy Colorado, $34,000, but you get 7,700 pounds towing, 1,700 pounds in the bed, and get this 430 pound-feet of torque. That's not bad at all for a mid-sized truck. So, look, there's not a ton of options for these little trucks. Now, you could go to a mini truck like the Maverick, but that's got a less serious towing capacity and payload rating. It is less than 30 grand, though. But I would say, for me, and what I would recommend if you're a consumer in the market, honestly, look at the used realm. Because with used trucks, at least, used trucks are going to be, like my Tacoma is a great example. I wanted a light-duty truck, but I wanted lockers. I wanted all the off-road goodies and all of this stuff. And my truck new in today's, like if I bought a new Tacoma with those specs today, it'd be like 50, 60 grand. But you can get it used for basically less than 20 now. So anyway, trucks are really getting expensive. I don't know what's going on in our world, but that's where we're at. So, hey, thanks for listening to the Automotive ADHD show. Thanks to Jared, who helps out with the video. Thanks to Alex, who also does some of the social media stuff. And thank you to everyone who gets this show on the radio across Southern Colorado. I'll talk to you next week. We're going to be right here talking about cars on Automotive ADHD.